So lesbian sex really interests me. And I'm fascinated by it. Because I think this... Sam, don't. Sam, don't do this right now. Okay, Sam, so there's this long-standing trope that women aren't funny.
Yes.
So you're a woman, you're a Black woman, you are a gay Black woman, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll confirm that.
How difficult was it to break in to comedy, to be taken seriously, to be seen as funny in a male-dominated, maybe white-dominated, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
It's so crazy because I don't want to sound shitty. I didn't really think about any of that stuff. To me, it was no different than society, right? Like, society is male-dominated and white male-dominated, and I've always been Black and a woman navigating that. So to go to comedy, it wasn't like I was like, this is particularly bad or good. It just kind of is what it is, and there's just certain things I expected because that's just what life has been. It wasn't like a big deal to me in that regard because I never really gave it much energy. I just kind of did me.
I would say people don't have to like you. People don't have to understand you.
Nope.
When you do the work and the work is good, they can't deny that. You know what I mean? Like, no one can deny that you're not a great writer, you know, and that you're not funny. Like, no one can say those things.
I mean, they can if that's how they feel. It's just like, how much weight are you gonna give it, you know?
Right. Like, I did Oprah, right? Like 9 months into my first tour for my first book. I remember there was this whole thing online about, does she deserve to be on Oprah? It doesn't matter. I'm already on Oprah.
Right.
I think there's a saying that says, like, the person who says it cannot be done should not interrupt the person doing it.
Oh, I am a firm believer in not listening to spectators.
Exactly, spectators.
It's like, if you're not in the game, I don't really hold too much weight to what you're saying.
Yeah.
If I give this any of my energy, then I'm just distracting myself from what I need to do.
Whenever I release something into the universe, I never check to see how it's doing.
No.
I did what I came to do. I released it.
Yes.
So people will ask me, like, well, how many books have you sold? Like, I know it's in the millions or whatever, like somewhere in there somewhere, but I don't know the number.
I'm the same way. Like, I don't know how many people watch my special. And people will always ask, you know, you'll like be hanging out.
Yeah.
Another comic might be like, so how did Pause do ratings wise? And I'm like, I don't know.
idea.
They gave me a season 2, so I guess enough people watched it. When it came into starting comedy, I kind of just started with the same attitude. I'm doing comedy in Boston. There's definitely a white boy network, and they definitely weren't too pleased about me and my style of comedy. You know, I got criticized a lot. I didn't do it the way they felt it should be done, very traditional. So they kind of treated me like they were all playing traditional basketball and I was like an N1 player, you know what I mean? Like, I just didn't have the skill set, and that's why I wasn't doing it their way, and they weren't respecting the fact that it was a very conscious choice to do it the way that I was doing it. But, you know, in time, all things reveal themselves because I kept doing what I was doing, and I got very traditional writing jobs and did that too. And it was like, yeah, you can just be multifaceted. You don't have to approach this one kind of way. I just really kind of fought for my identity by consistently showing up as myself.
I love that.
This is what I'm talking about.
Let me see.
Look, it's a star on the corner. This is what I wanted. These are like emo boy nails. This is what I told you.
Emo boy nails.
Yeah, I want emo boy nails.
I like that. I don't know what we're doing so far, but it looks like I've got some
Oh, that's cool.
drippy Black things happening.
I like that.
But we're not done yet, so we gonna see. So you're engaged, right?
I am engaged.
When did you get engaged?
Last January on
Yeah?
my birthday.
How did you know that this was the one?
I've known my fiance for a long time. We met in our college years.
Wow.
So we've been dating off and on since we met. Very tumultuous relationship. Makeups to breakups. Have cheated on people with her. Like, kind of just always a moth to her toxic flame.
That sounds so romantic. Please tell me more. It sounds great.
Like, in a real way.
Hashtag goals.
I think some level of toxicity is good. I need a little crazy to keep me engaged. If it's too easy, I don't want any parts of it. I need a little bit of that.
You know what I'm gonna say,
Some
right?
trauma.
Trauma. Okay, go ahead.
But I do.
Yeah,
I mean, some traumas never leave. If she's not being like some level of toxic, then I feel like she doesn't like me. You gotta act crazy. A little bit. For me to know.
If she acts a little crazy, then do you fuck her better? Like my chiropractor readjusts me, like he
little bit.
realigns me when my back is acting up.
A little bit.
Right? So do you go home and like realign, and, like
little
readjust
bit.
her back?
A little bit. It's also like I grew up in that like Jay-Z era of music.
What does Jay-Z have to do with any of
Because
this?
every time when Jay-Z would rap, he just be talking about like, yeah, then the bitch went crazy, and then that's how bitches be, and I gotta give them good sex, and then the bitches calm down.
Don't blame Jay-Z for your toxic
I am
bullshit.
gonna blame Jay-Z.
No way.
gonna blame
What
Jay-Z.
song is this?
All of them.
All of them?
To some level or another.
I think we're listening to a different Jay-Z.
I had to throw her a couple of dollars just to shut up a holler. I knew she was the one because she was just crazy enough to keep me engaged.
Wow. I love this.
2 weeks maybe into dating her.
Yeah.
I was like, I have to tell you something, but I don't want you to feel pressure, and I don't want you to feel like you have to tell me it back.
No, not this.
It was that. I was like, but I need to tell you because I just feel it. And if I don't tell you, then I'm going to feel weird. But I promise I don't care.
I understand.
Because I realized that it's 2 weeks into this crazy. Of course, she was like, you're a fucking weirdo. And I was like, that's fine. I used to tell her I was going to Steve Urkel her and like wear her down. And like, it's just going to happen.
You did that. That's so romantic.
And then I did it, you know?
When you guys met, were you actively gay?
Tell me what actively gay means.
Well, earlier, before we started rolling, you mentioned...
All that I used to with dudes and suck and stuff. I was fully gay at that point.
And you knew that, and you were...
Yeah.
When did you accept your sexuality and live in your truth?
I was probably like 24.
Okay.
I just didn't know. I thought I liked boys. And I had a boyfriend, and he came along at a time when I was going through a lot. Like, my mom had just passed. I was 16. He was like my high school boyfriend, and we stayed together until I was like 21.
Okay.
In that whole development of your sexual identity, I was just with this one person, and I loved him.
Yeah.
I genuinely loved him, and we had a real connection, and we were real friends. So I was like, yeah, I like dudes, you know? Like, I really didn't think about being a lesbian as even an option for me. Yeah. And then I was dating dudes, and like, it just wasn't clicking. I was just like, this doesn't feel right. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe I'm just one of those girls where I have to really like love you to like sex with you. And if there's any woman who thinks that's what she is, you're gay. But I thought this about myself. I was like, that's it. That's my thing. I'm just a connection girl. Oh. Right. And if that's not the case, then it's not going to work.
Right.
And women have always hit on me my entire life since I've been a child. I was always throwing up gay signals I just wasn't aware of. Mm-hmm. A bunch of women were hitting on me in Atlanta. And I wasn't like disgusted by it the way I thought I would be. Mm. You know what I mean? Like, I thought if that would ever have happened to me, I'd be like, no. But I was like, maybe. You know what I mean? Yeah. I wasn't like, no. So I was like, something's going on. And it was kind of like that slow build to an understanding. And then I was like, oh. And I like went down on a chick, and then I was like, oh. And then I realized that my whole sexual life, I never was really that into it. And I can have sex with a stranger if she's a woman. So I was like, yeah, I'm not a connection person. Yeah. I just don't like and I just didn't realize that. Then I was like, cut my hair.
Full on.
Yeah, I threw all my girl underwear away. I was like, oh, this is who you've always wanted to be.
Boxers from here on out.
Boxers from here on out. Haircut. I gave away all my shoes. I gave away all my girl clothes to my cousins.
Yeah.
And I was
You're fully committed. Like, I knew this is who I am.
Yeah, I knew fully this was like what I kind of always been on.
I love that for you. I'm gonna tell you something I haven't told anybody. So lesbian sex really interests me. And I'm fascinated by it. Because I think this, Sam, don't. Sam, don't do this right now. But I met this girl. Like, I like her. So this is the only like girl that I've ever met that I was like, oh, okay. Right? So then I started thinking about, like, how does it work?
What do you mean, how would it work? What are you confused about?
I always wondered, like, if I ever had sex with this girl, I don't even know how it would work.
Like sex?
Yeah, like, I don't even know what to...
It would just work like sex.
Ooh,
you not gay, bitch. If this is, like, freaking you out like
it's not freaking me out.
Look at you.
I'm like, but I'm not. It's like, I'm not gay. I like her only. So I always tell people, like, she's the only person that made me realize what fluidity was.
Yes.
Where you love the person.
Yes.
somehow.
Which I fully believe in at most. Like when
Right?
people are like, will you ever be able to do it again? I'm like, I cannot predict anything because I was with a dude. I
never
know.
want to see you with a guy ever again.
I don't know.
Never.
Maybe I'll meet some like Twinkie boy, and I'm like, I'm into this little Twinkie
What
boy.
if he's Twinkie and like all, yeah.
That's what I'm
I see what you're
saying.
I see
I
what
don't
you're saying.
know.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so I was celibate for well over 2.5 years.
How was that?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I actually highly recommend celibacy.
For what? Like, what did you get out of it?
Clarity. Absolute clarity, absolute peace. Self-love was a huge thing that I got out of it. And realizing that even though we all think and say that we love ourselves, we usually don't. And there's no way to gauge that until you eliminate everybody and everything. Sex I didn't miss because I was with somebody for so long, and when that relationship was tapering off, I didn't need to be with anybody else. I needed to heal more than I needed sex. So sex is not a need for me, it's an extra, but I can go forever without it.
What do you think that is? Because I'm not like that either.
Not needing sex?
Yeah, my fiance thinks I'm insane. I'm like,
Really?
it's fine if I'm doing it. I'm not.
I'm not complaining. Yeah, it's great.
But it's not like if it doesn't happen for a week, I'm not like, what the man?
I think a lot of
I need
people
to,
have.
you know, like
I
I'm
think
not.
I better never hear you say that. I can't. I think a lot of people
In
have
traffic.
sexual in traffic. I think a lot of us have sexual traumas, and we chalk it up to horniness.
So now when I don't want to have sex and my girl be all horny, I'm like, you need to deal with your trauma.
I can't.
Because you can't just sit with yourself.
You can't just
girl.
sit with yourself and not be trifled with. So my celibacy left me with that.
So what would grown woman you, what would you say to your younger self? I was gonna say 20 years.
I would tell 24-year-old Elisabeth to not be so hard on herself for not doing everything quote unquote right at the exact quote unquote right moment. Like, because the only way is through.
Yeah.
The obstacle is the journey. You know what I mean? And so Corinne, even though I hadn't named her yet, I had always had an alter ego. So growing up, I always had another name. In high school, I was Brooklyn or I was Eset. I always had another name. I always needed something else to shield me because I never felt safe in the world. And I still don't feel safe in the world. Just as a woman born into abuse and trauma, I've never felt safe. So I always had an alter ego my entire life. It didn't just start with Corinne. I always had another name. I was always another person. But for Corinne, I would tell her really nothing. I feel like I did everything perfectly. And I know that sounds weird, but it's because I wouldn't change how Corinne or Elisabeth handled anything, only based on where I am now. So being able to look back, I didn't understand. I didn't know what I was doing. It was all very confusing. It was all very painful. It was all things bad and all things great. It was life. I wouldn't change any of it. What about you? 20 years ago, you were how old?
21.
Okay, so 21?
21 years old.
What would you tell yourself?
I just was going through so much like abandonment stuff. You know, my mom died when I was 16 and I was just kind of floating in the world with no direction and feeling like there was no one left to catch me, feeling like I was plummeting. I would tell that person that everything she needs to get through is inside her already. And to just believe and trust yourself.
Trust yourself. That's a big one. That's
We
big.
deep.
I know, it's therapy.
That's it, we deep, girl.
It's cute therapy because our nails are getting done at the same
are
time.
deep.
I like that. I like you, Sam.
Thanks. I like you too. I'm surprised.
Really?
Not that I didn't think I would
What
like
the
you,
What?
but I didn't think you were this chill. You just never know what you're gonna get.